The basic idea here is that we're going to start with each room to see how big it is, how it's used, and therefore how many people the fire marshal figures can fit inside here, and then how many doors it will need. And for instance, this room, LL25, has a sign posted by the fire marshal that says, by order of the fire marshal, no more than 60 people. Maximum occupancy is 60 people. And you'll see that in restaurants and movie theaters and all that kind of stuff as well. And that's based on, it's a pretty straightforward calculation of the floor area divided by how much space each person takes up for that use, and conceivably for future uses. So for let's say a restaurant that's set up as a nightclub and they have tables and a small stage or something or other, and it's got one door, let's just say, or one door. And the fire marshal is going to say, that's very well, but at some point, like maybe this weekend, you're going to clear out the tables and fill it full of dancing, drunken teenagers, and there'll be 400 of them doing that instead of, say, 40 patrons at tables. So actually, no, you need 2 exits. So that it's sort of envisioning the worst. If you all Google at some point, shirtwaist fire, WAIST, and in the early 1900s, I guess, there was a 10-story building housing a garment factory in New York City that employed mostly women your age, whose eyes and fingers were still able to sew stuff. Really weren't any, safety laws. There were doors and stairs to get out, but the owners had chained the doors to the stairwells so that the girls didn't either take breaks or steal stuff. So when the fire inevitably did happen, this whole building full of young women and cloth just went up like a chimney. Nobody could get out. People threw themselves out of windows. The few who could get to the doors and down to the ground floor couldn't open the doors because of the bodies that were piled up outside. And that's why we do fire safety. There are a couple of documentaries about it that just make your hair stand up on the back of your neck. So we'll be dealing with each room, and then we take a suite of rooms, which are, sort of like the faculty offices in the conference room all there, that share a door out into the larger way to get out. So room, suite, and then the whole floor. If we have to get everybody on this floor out of here in a hurry, how does that accomplish? And then you have the whole building. If this is the first floor of a 5-story building, we have to get all those people down and out and have enough doors and widths and all that kind of stuff to do that. Let me talk a little bit about the International Building Code and the Kentucky Building Code, which is based upon it. The infuriating thing to me about using them is that almost every number or diagram has a little asterisk or footnote or 2 asterisks or 3 asterisks saying, oh, but in this, if it's a sprinklered educational facility, then you have to do 72 inches. And if it's a non-sprinklered residential, it's full of exceptions. And I know that they started out trying to make it very clean. And then because buildings have so many different parameters and people use them in so many different ways, they have to figure, oh, well, yes, that needs to be more stringent. This can be more lenient because everybody's awake. Finding my way through the exceptions is the hard part. I had sort of an epiphany years ago when I was an art major. I really didn't want to get involved in the codes and the numbers and table after table after table. But then at one point we had to do it. And I really came to value who knew how to do it well and did it. And it's sort of like I had to appreciate my shadow side. It's like the stuff that I've been pushing away really is an important part of being a complete professional. Although in this case, it was like being a professional team where we had different responsibilities. So the revelation was realizing that I had to honor the ability of the person who could do it well instead of resenting the limits that her research placed on my designs. Most states use it's called the International Building Code, which is available free online, nicely indexed, good searching. Buying it is expensive, like $100 or something. Maybe more. All the state building codes, which actually govern construction, are free online as PDFs. The Kentucky Building Code, it's like they took the International Building Code and add some stuff for bourbon, distilleries and all that kind of stuff. What's useful there is that in the International Code, the Kentucky Code, and here in Francis Ching's excellent Building Codes Illustrated, the numbering stays the same. The sections, the diagrams, the tables are all have the same numbers attached to them. Even if a state code cuts out part of the model IBC code, say section 1007, it will skip from section 1006 to 1008 and not renumber everything. And the section numbers remain the same from year to year. So eventually you get to know your way around. If you master and get good at it, you'll make a lot more money than the designers will, because managers and technical people who can do stuff well, people are willing to pay them extra to do that. In large projects, I mostly work for an architect who is good at that. And he does a lot of multi-use buildings, which is residences upstairs and offices in the middle, and then shops on the first floor. And that gets very complicated with all the fire separation assemblies you need to have between those. So let's just see where we get with this. First of all, we're going to be making a lot of notes on our life safety plan, a lot of stuff there that applies that we'll do to another. So I'm going to take my level 1 floor plan, or level 11, I guess this is, duplicate it, and I'll duplicate with detailing. So I pick up whatever is already here in the way of annotation and grid lines. And I'm going to call it level 11 life safety. Within each room, which has its, each room has its own door out to either a corridor that gets it to an exit way, or gets it to a corridor that gets it to a corridor that gets it to an exit way. Every space has some sort of door closing it off, and we have to decide how many doors does each room need and how many doors does each suite need, which is what I'm using to describe sort of this area up here. And without going into giving them all rooms and names and numbers and adding them all up, what's the quickest way just to know how big that suite is? And really the quickest one is to go into annotate region, filled region. This be just a hatched area. And I'm just going to make a rectangle here. We can use the shape tools, but just like this big. Okay. So we're going to start thinking of that as a suite. And when I select it, I can see that it's, let's call it 2,200 square feet, just to be on the safe side. So knowing that, well, this is where the spreadsheet would come in handy. For general office use, we have a number of 150 square feet per person. So what we want to have here is 2,200 divided by 150. It used to be 100. They've just bumped it up to 150. Who's got a calculator? 2,200 divided by 150. 14.667, call it 15. That's the occupancy of that space. The general rule is up to 50 people, you can have just one door. Well, 49 people can have one door. Starting with 50, you need two doors. This is a suite that provides two, and that's fine. Let's take this one down here. It's a little bigger. So this whole space is 4,700 square feet. And let's say it's going to be used as a classroom. It's a Kaplan Academy. Everybody's packed in doing that kind of stuff. And for people at desks, that's 20 square feet per person. So 4,700 divided by 20. Okay, 235. That's more than 49, so we need at least two. It's less than 500, which is where we kick into 3. So we clearly need two doors for this space down here. So we're good for that. Except there's one other thing. Two doors right next to each other are not going to be useful. That's just like one big door. They go to the same place. What we want to have is two doors essentially as far apart as possible. And in fact, there's a minimum distance. And the way they do it is I'm going to draw a line. You do a big diagonal line across the whole space from one farthest corner to the next farthest corner. And this one's bigger than that one, so we'll use this one. And it can go outside the space. It can even go over a courtyard. It can go over trees. It doesn't matter, just farthest point to farthest point. And then the doors need to be at least half that distance apart. So if we pick this guy, we see that that's 131 feet, and half of 131 is 65. So let's just do a line here. So we'll do a line from here to here. And It can technically be from the nearest point to the nearest point, but really you might as well go from center line to center line. And we see that this guy is 48 feet, which is less than half the diagonal, less than 65 feet. So I need to be at least 60. I need this. Well, we can't move this door any farther. It's it's just not part of the property. So I have to move this door over, so it's at least 65 feet from that one. From this door to this door, I'm just using a draw line and then picking the line, is 48 feet, which is too small. They're too close together. I need to move this one farther down here. So what I'm going to do is just draw a circle from here. Half of 134 is 67 feet. So my new door has to be somewhere on this arc. And seeing how this is working out, I think I'm just going to move all these guys over to here to center them on, I guess, the elevator corridor, which is where they were to start with before I started messing with this thing. And we know that this is far enough away because it's outside the circle, right? The farther, the better. People say, well, what if I have the opportunity to do 3 doors? As long as 2 of them are this halfway distance, then any others you can put essentially anywhere you want that's not like right next to the others. That's very loose, the fire marshal, and you can sort of decide, I need it over here because it's near the women's bathroom or something, whatever you want to do. But this is the big one, and this is fine for everything up to a big auditorium. So that's just for one room with its doorways. Let's say this was all one big suite with multiple offices that haven't been laid out yet. So there's that. This is now much bigger. Get rid of these. Let's just look at this one and see if this is still good. I'm going to do a big diagonal again, which will go from here over to here now. So this would be like if a single tenant was coming in there and wanting to know what they could do through there. So that's 153 feet. Let's call it 160. So I would like to have 2 doors that are at least 80 feet apart. And I'll go to dimension from here to here. That's 95 feet apart. So that's great. Those 2 take care of all of our egress, and I can put this guy anywhere I want as our main reception entrance. This makes me think, seeing that this is, what do we say, 160 or something. Probably whoever laid out this building, if this is a real building, was thinking, okay, how do we arrange the doors so that a single tenant could use that space? Let's get rid of this door because it's actually not required. There's so many further considerations, but one would be, let's just draw this on the board briefly. Okay, let's say I have an office plan like this, and I've got office out here, and there's another hall, and a staircase out here, and one down here or something. The person exiting this room to start with has only the one choice of coming over to there, and they've got to look and make a choice. And it's full of smoke. He doesn't know what to do, and it looks less smoky this way than it does over here. So he comes down here, and he gets here, and it's still smoky. And he's saying which way to go, right or left. He's never been there before. He's getting frantic. And what you can't do is have what are called dead end corridors. Let somebody go down there and get to the end and realize, oh crap, this was not the right way to go after all. And then have to come back and make that decision again. So there's a limit to how long they can be. So you haven't wasted a chunk of time crawling to get to the end. Normally that's 20 feet. It's not much. Under some circumstances, it can be longer than that, and the limit does not apply at all if the length is less than 2.5 times the width. So it's almost like going into a big wide space in the hall. And I've really never seen that used, except in cases where there might be other rooms sort of coming off that. In a large floor plan, it gives you some flexibility since every door of every room doesn't have to open directly onto a corridor. The dead-end corridor rules do not apply in a situation like this where only one exit is required. There's only one exit is required, and it's here. People come out here, they come down the hall and go out. Smaller areas where presumably people are more or less familiar with what's going on. If the required corridor width is, let's say, 5 feet, when the doors swing out, they can't take up more than half of that. They're going to swing back against the wall, but even when they're at their widest opening and people are streaming by, you don't want them taking up more than half the space. And in no cases stick out more than 7 inches into the required width when opened as far as they can. So if this were actually the full required width here, we would have to move this door back, move this wall down, so that didn't stick out more than 7 inches. The whole field of life safety combines broad concepts with minute details, such as, do handrails count as making the stairs less wide? And I forget, look it up. Now here's something, this is a tool that Revit has, it's new, it's interesting and sort of fun. And it's called Common Path of Egress Travel Distance, which is the distance from the most remote point in each space, whether it's let's just say it's a room. If I started back here in this room, which is the farthest from the door, and sort of drew a path from here, and when I've got a door here and a door here, then I just have to come to here before I can choose to go in 2 different directions. Okay. If we don't have this door, this person has to travel through here, down to here before they can either choose to go to this staircase or to this staircase. And this one is not diagonals. This is actual people walking through the space and not bumping into furniture. So that's over here in Analyze, this thing called Path of Travel, where you just click 2 points. You creates a path of travel along the shortest travel distance, walking distance between 2 selected points. And I'll just pick it right here. You know, it's back there watering the flowers and the alarm goes off. So I start there and I need to get to here, where I will choose which staircase to go to. So Revit goes think, and misses the furniture, misses the walls, can go through the doors, misses the reception desk, comes through the doors and gets to here. And then I can see that line is, well, essentially 87 feet. I'm sort of throwing Schneider hole in here. For educational occupancies, that distance is 75 feet. Here's a quick summary of the most important egress distances. For sprinklered educational occupancies, the maximum distance to the point where you have 2 choices of exits is 75 feet. The farthest distance from anywhere in the building to a building exit is 250 feet, and the dead-end corridor length in a sprinkler building is 50 feet, 20 in a non-sprinklered building. Schneider Hall is partially sprinklered. Which one applies? I don't know. A couple words just about exit corridors. As a general rule, for every exit corridor, like to get people out of a building in an emergency, has to be at least 44 inches wide. That's just a given, unless, as up here, the occupancy is less than 50, in which case this could have been 36 inches wide. So if the building owner was really trying to maximize the space, we could do that. That's entirely legal up there because our occupancy is so much. Was 16 people? What do we figure that was for that suite? 14. Yeah, and something that the fire marshal will say is, yeah, I see that you've given me 14.6, but boy, you know, I see 18 chairs in there. So there always is the circumstance where your actual use can be documented as being less than or provided one. In that case, you can ask for a dispensation. But in a case like this, I would say, oh, where occupancy is less than 50. Okay, we're still way under up here. We're never going to get like 5 people in each of these rooms and 10 people in the waiting rooms. That's not going to happen. And bathrooms don't count because we figure they're coming from somewhere else. Educational institutions, one of the reasons these halls are so wide is that the minimum width for educational use is 72 inches as soon as the occupancy is greater than 100, which it almost always is in a school. If we're trying to determine how big egress corridors need to be, this is down towards the bottom of page 1. For like lots and lots of people, they want 0.2 inches of width for each occupant served. So if you have 200 occupants, that's 200 times 0.2, which is 40 inches. But code minimum is 44 inches. So that's one little asterisk. And if it's a school, it's 72 inches. So all sorts of stacking exceptions on top of each other. Stairs are another case where we have 0.3 inches per student, per occupant. And the real rule here is that we never want, as people are going from an occupied space through their corridors, down the stairs, and then out, we never want the capacity of that exit way to be diminished. We don't want to be able to have 100 people coming down the stairs in a minute and then only 30 people to be able to get through the doors, or 40 people into the next corridor. We don't ever want people getting jammed up as they're trying to leave a building because the capacity of the exit route got smaller. So you almost want to think of the capacity as getting, at least staying the same and presumably getting wider as you go down, because you're picking up, like here we pick up people from upstairs because the staircase is one of our required exits for the first floor. Let's take a tour. Let's take a fire safety tour. Okay, internet people, you're just going to have to trust me on this. We are now standing in the hall outside LL25. This pipe up here is our fire sprinkler pipe, but you notice that there are no sprinkler heads there. Well, it's because basically this right here is non-flammable construction. Okay, and it's not a high hazard area. There's no solvents or explosives and stuff like that, and it's plenty wide, so we actually aren't required to have them here. But come around the corner. We're now going to the part of the hall between the staircase and the exterior door that faces Let's Hall. Well, here we have sprinklers. And notice where the sprinklers are, which is to say, every 10 feet from the stairwell to the outside door, between the two sets of fire doors. So what happens is, in the case of fire, the magnets release and these doors shut at both ends. The sprinklers go off if necessary. These doors are held open by electromagnets, which are on right now. And when the power goes out, they let go once it senses the heat. It just does it all by itself. So my guess is, yes, this was not designed this way originally. Originally, this was all library stacks. This was all libraries. There weren't any partitions in here at all. So we'll continue our tour through room 30 and into the printmaking studio. So all down this other long hallway, no sprinkler heads, but we get into printmaking, and that because of the inks, solvents, and all the prints drying on racks, there are sprinkler heads every 8 or 10 feet on center for the entire room. Not only are the solvents flammable, but probably explosive as well, which would spread flames even faster. Okay, back from our tour. If we were to be laying out sprinkler heads, or I should say, what always happens with this is the engineer comes back with the optimum layout for sprinkler heads, which is, say, the most coverage for the least number of heads. Seems like it never works out with what we intend from a design point of view for what we want the building to look like. They're right in the middle of our floating neon light sculpture, whatever that happens to be. But let's just see where we go with this. In terms of placement, if we're just sort of roughing it out or want to suggest a layout to the engineer, which is entirely fine, but it'll be his drawings with his stamp that go out with the actual locations and the sizes. We can say, this is how we were thinking of doing it. How about it? So I'm going to take my ceiling plan. I'll just do this on the regular ceiling plan, so we don't have to have a separate life safety plan. And the universal symbol for a sprinkler head is just a big round black dot, which you can place as a big round black dot, but you might as well have it done with a Revit tool. And that's with architecture, component, place component. I'm in a ceiling plan view here. We're loading the family here in, we got a whole fire protection category to load. Everything you want to do, but we just want sprinkler heads. And I'm going to recommend we use this one, sprinkler dry pendant posted. Let me digress a little here. The point of wet and dry are, I guess these are by default wet, is some of the systems, and I don't know which ones we have here, some of them, the pipes are always full of water. So as soon as a sprinkler head senses heat, it opens, water is right there immediately to drench everything. However, they go off if you hit them with a ladder. They go off if somebody sent off a smoke bomb or was playing around or was in a class and blew smoke at it or something. So the wet ones are ready to go. Dry ones, the pipes are all dry. But when a or one of the sensors, wherever that happens to be, smoke detectors, figures there's a fire, some switch is thrown back and releases the water and it can come down. And that makes it much easier to add to the system because you don't have to drain it and everything ahead of time, but you can add things to it usefully. But I'm just going to use this dry pendant hosted one. Hosted means it just wants to stick itself to something. In this case, it'll stick to a floor or a ceiling. Open. And it loads that. And then we want to place it on a face. We want to place this on the face of the ceiling that we're looking up at. And I'm just going to try, let's just see, put them in the middle of these two guys and see what we get. So nice, symmetrically, nicely designed, lovely, lovely look. Each of these heads cover approximately a 15-foot diameter circle. So let's just see what that is. DL circle. I'll do it with dashed lines or demolished lines or something. So that would be 7.5 feet radius. Okay, I'm sure the engineer will be happy with that. We don't have to do two in there to sort of pick up the corners. It's going to be trickier going down the hall, which if this is a building that's required to be sprinklered, we really need them there because this is how people are going to get safely out to wherever they're going. So let's just say that we're required to do it here. They sort of don't like them to be closer than that 7.5 feet to a wall. So we're not really working in the optimum range here. You know, we could widen the hallway back again. And I think at this point, that's when the engineer would come in and say, oh, you need a special narrow beam sprinkler heads down the middle. Depending upon the situation, different types of heads can aim up, down, sideways, or on a slant, be exposed or concealed, recessed or projecting, hung or mounted directly to the ceiling. For me, I just say, okay, I know I'm just guessing here, but it means that I am at least paying attention to what might have to happen in this space, you know. And then they'll come through and say, no, that's not going to work at all. Yeah, I don't actually have a ceiling put in out here to be able to do that. But in a building like this, you would certainly have the sprinkler heads in this whole common area, which is getting us to the stairwells. Bathrooms need them as well, even though there's nothing flammable. There could still be cigarette butt in the trash can or something like that. What else can I do here while I'm at it? We sort of look at each room and then at this suite. What if we consider, this is the 11th floor of this building. Let's consider this floor as a whole and make sure that we've got enough ways out of it. So let's find out what this whole area is. I'll just use that annotate region, filled region. This is very approximate. Actual calculations would subtract out the corridors, elevator shafts, and stairwells. And what the spreadsheet I set up did was just set it up so you can figure out the area of each room, suite, which I'm defining as a bunch of rooms that have a common entrance into an egress route. How many doors the suite needs. Then you add up all the suites on the floor and see how many exits that floor needs. And since the Schneider Hall upstairs only has actually that one entrance out front, it has to have this one and I guess the other one down at the other end of the hall, which has its own sets of fire doors and sprinklers from the stairwell to the exterior door that faces the BAB. Entrance off the patio and that staircase are the ones that are as far apart as possible for the first floor. And this is sort of the extra third one that's put pretty much wherever they want. So with that, we have, let's say 12,600 square feet. And let's just say this is all office occupancy. So we divide by 150 square feet per person. That's about 100. So we would need two exits for this whole floor, which indeed we have. Oh, I should have been in a floor plan, not in a ceiling plans. We got about 100 people, like 98 people on this floor. That's more than 50 and less than 500. So two exits is fine, and those two will suffice for the whole floor, not just for this suite, but for everybody here as well. So we want to look at it from the point of view of the room, from the point of view of the suite, and then from the point of view of the whole floor. And then the last thing is, how do we deal with this in terms of the whole building? In the World Trade Center, 3,000 people died on 9/11, but 25,000 people walked down the stairs and got out of the buildings, even though, as later investigations showed, there were too few staircases and they were too narrow. You can also factor time into that. And this is when it gets way beyond my ability or knowledge to deal with. But if a whole building is being evacuated at once, the people on the top floor are doing this at the same time the people on the next are doing that. So you never have the whole 20,000 people on the same floor at the same time. You've got 5,000 people here and 5,000 people here and 5,000 here and 5,000 here, just sort of working their way on down. So there are a lot of sort of human engineering, I'm not sure what the word is, logistical, ergonomic studies about how people actually move through a space. That I'm not qualified to talk about. One thing we need to be sure to include is exit signs. Here they have the emergency lights, which are just the ones that aim in both directions and run off a battery when the power's off. Emergency wall light. Oh, I remember. It's in specialty equipment. Specialty equipment, fire protection. Okay, exit sign. There we go. Okay, nice, looks great. Specialty equipment, fire protection. I should say they look differently in plan. This is just the standard look for an exit. It's just an X for exit. Yeah, and what you can see here, what we're looking down at is the letters that say exit. So, I guess we move it in there and we'll take a look at that in 3D. Oh, I guess, what am I in now? I'm in a ceiling plan, floor plan, life safety plan. It's not in the life safety plan, which is where I would like it. Let's see if I can place it here. No, it's going up to the ceiling. View, camera. Okay, so that's that guy, and that's all we need to do. This is the kind that actually just hangs from the ceiling, essentially, so that when we do it in the ceiling plan, we don't want it stuck into the wall. So there's that. So we would want to have that there. Oh, I don't have any ceiling to stick it to here. Let's put one in. Architecture, ceiling. CM. Why is that not working? Exit sign. Create similar. Okay, there it goes. Now, something like this, I think you want to rotate it. So that view, 3D view, camera, people can see it from where they're coming from. So pay attention to that. Your ceiling and ceiling life safety plans might well show identical building elements, lights, sprinklers, and exit signs, but have different tags and annotations appropriate to each view. I think that's about all I can think of. This has been the revelation of a lifetime, I know. Good night, Internet friends. See you anon.